It seems like every time you turn on TMZ, you see a news story about a formerly famous and worshipped celebrity who lives in rehab or is begging in a mall parking lot. Once upon a time, these movie stars and athletes were actually worshipped by the world until they slowly faded out of the limelight. Some of them finally let their drug addictions get the better of them, and others just seem to lose the public's interest. Join us as we take a look at some famous people who lost absolutely everything. Dustin Diamond. Remember the lovable geek named Screech Powers, who was obsessed with Lisa Turtle? Well, after Saved by the Bell wrapped up, Screech's life would take a turn for the worst. Sure, there was the college years, and then there was that crappy spin-off where they returned. But after that, Dustin Diamond found it nearly impossible to find more acting work. He was able to find work in very small roles in large movies like American Pie, but soon even those places stopped giving him the call. Ending up typecast and absolutely depressed, Dustin Diamond's life began to spiral out of control. He began drinking heavily, despite not having the money to support his habit. He began working on reality television, like Celebrity Fit Club. That was until he began trying to fight other members of the show. And what would you think would be his lowest point? Well, as it turns out, Diamond directed and released his very own pornographic sex tape. Then he went on to release a book that was highly critical of his Saved by the Bell days, along with his former friends and castmates. In the book, many of the stories painted the show, its actors, and the producers in very unflattering ways. The public would soon grow tired of his antics, and he once again faded into the background. A few years down the road, fans began reporting that Dustin Diamond was in such financial ruin, he actually started selling t-shirts that read, "I paid $15 to help Screech save his house." The last Screech sighting came in 2014 in a small town in Wisconsin. Apparently, Diamond would be arrested for the possession of a switchblade just a day after Christmas. It's alleged that Dustin Diamond had stabbed a man in a bar fight just a few days before, and he went on to serve 3 months in prison. Mike Tyson. The story of Mike Tyson's rise and fall was highly publicized throughout the 90s and early 2000s. The undisputed heavyweight champion of the world never exactly lived an easy life, and the money that came along with his fame didn't really seem to help either. Tyson was raised in Brooklyn, New York, around numerous high-crime neighborhoods. His iconic high-pitched voice and his speech impediment made him a target for local bullies during his youth. But by the time that he was 13, he had been arrested an astounding 38 times for getting into fights. According to Tyson himself, the first time that he fought someone was because they pulled the head off of one of his pigeons. It became clear that Tyson might not have a traditional future. That's when he began taking up boxing. By the age of 15, he had become the junior Olympic champion, and he was also managing to stay out of jail. By the time that he turned 18, he was already an international sporting icon. Tyson would go on to become the youngest boxer to ever win a heavyweight title at the age of 20, and was a millionaire at the age that most people are still in college. At the height of his career, he would be getting paid nearly $30 million per fight, the highest of any boxer at the time. People close to Tyson reported that he was spending nearly $400,000 a month on things like houses, and cars, and drugs and alcohol. Despite this lavish lifestyle, he did continue to win his fights and got a face tattoo while he was at it. But like all good things, his millionaire lifestyle had to come to an end. In August of 2003, Tyson filed for bankruptcy. He had fired everyone working for him just to pay his bills, and his lack of fiscal responsibility was digging him into a very deep, dark hole. One year, he reportedly made $65 million, but had already spent $63 million of it by December. His body was also beginning to fail him, and the once great boxer was now simply using his celebrity status to get into matches with a high payday, even though there was a chance that he would lose. Tyson was still able to maintain an impressive 50-6 record when he retired in 2005, but was still in an incredible amount of debt. His drug and alcohol addiction would continue after his retirement, and then he would be arrested for driving under the influence in 2006. Fortunately enough, though, this would be the turning point for the former heavyweight champion of the world. He began to take up acting roles in television and movies, including the widely popular movie The Hangover. Currently, Tyson is the star of a television show on Adult Swim called The Mike Tyson Mysteries, and has also starred in numerous documentary films. While he's no longer in debt, his $3 million net worth is just pennies compared to the $300 million earnings over his entire career. Oh, and he's also made attempts at making music and becoming a stand-up comedian. Robert Downey Jr. Here's a slightly more uplifting story about an actor who had it all, lost it all, and then got it all back. This is the story of Robert Downey Jr. Now, before Robert Downey Jr. was the highest paid actor in Hollywood for his role as Iron Man, he was the name that you might say when trying to reference a drug addict. Downey's first introduction into the dark side of the movie industry came at the age of 8. His father, Robert Downey Sr., was a successful movie director, as well as an enthusiastic consumer of the devil's lettuce. Downey Sr. decided that it might be a good idea to give his 8-year-old son a hit of marijuana so that he could have a taste. 8-year-old Robert Downey Jr. said that he loved it, and by the time that he'd reached the 5th grade, was already known for being an avid smoker by his peers. By the age of 13, he had apparently already tried cocaine, and to our surprise, he had not yet even begun drinking. For some reason, that's where the superstar parent, Downey Sr., drew the line for his young son, but it was inevitable. By the time he dropped out of high school, he was a certified alcoholic and a cocaine abuser. Jobless, without a degree, and always under the influence, Downey decided that he would pursue the lifestyle of a broke actor. Unfortunately, though, it turned out that Downey had an amazing talent when it came to acting. His life as a broke actor lasted a very short time, and by the age of 22, he would be running around with the Brat Pack and had hundreds of thousands of dollars to support his addiction. His meteoric rise to fame did nothing but fuel the rumors that surrounded his party boy lifestyle, and over the next decade he would be seen hanging out with strippers, found high in nightclubs, and would often spend the night in one of the LA County Jail's drunk tanks. He was even once arrested for wandering around barefoot and high along a road in Culver City. Once again, while drunk and high, he would be arrested for breaking into his neighbor's Malibu home and then passing out on the couch. His lifestyle would escalate, and he would continue to take risks until a local judge finally had enough of his behavior. Downey was consistently arrested for possession of drugs, along with public intoxication, but rarely served hard time. However, in 1996, 4 years after his famous Oscar nomination, he was stopped for speeding down Sunset Boulevard and soon arrested for the possession of heroin, cocaine, and a .357. He went on to serve a 3-year sentence in the California State Prison, where he often got into fights. Once he was released, it would seem that he was cleaning up his act. Sadly, however, he had once again fallen off the wagon. This would be the final straw. Downey was once again facing jail time if he wasn't able to turn his life around. He pled no contest to his most recent charges in order to avoid jail, and agreed to go to rehab. Downey had finally hit rock bottom, but no one really wanted to take the risk of hiring him despite his talent. After a few years of rehab and laying low, Downey decided to make an attempt at a comeback, booking a role in the movie The Singing Detective, but he was completely broke and couldn't pay the insurance bond. Fortunately enough for him, Mel Gibson offered to pay the fee, which was the boost that he needed to restart his career. From there, he would be able to book movies like Gothica and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which were ultimately the roles that would lead him to gaining the part of Tony Stark in the Iron Man franchise, and the rest is history. As of today, the Marvel movies have become one of the highest-grossing franchises in cinematic history, and Downey has famously taken a cut of that money. In fact, it's estimated that in 2014, he made nearly $50 million from one single film. In the span of 10 years, he went from a broke drug addict to one of the most sought-after actors in Hollywood. Nicolas Cage. Now, you wouldn't think that our most underappreciated national treasure, Mr. Nicolas Cage, would have ever been in financial straits, but he too has fallen on hard times during his career. In 2009, he was one of the highest-paid actors in Hollywood, reportedly earning over $40 million in just that year alone. Cage decided to use that money in order to invest in real estate around the world, and was literally buying islands in the Bahamas, houses in Malibu, Middletown, New Orleans, Somerset, and various other places in Nevada and California, along with a few select other properties. Cage owned well over $100 million in property, in fact, and at the height of his spending, he even bought 22 exotic cars in a single year. With the number of high-profile movies Cage was producing and starring in, it seemed that his spending was justified. However, he conveniently forgot that he needed to pay taxes on all of those millions that he had been earning over the years, and eventually, the Internal Revenue Service would come knocking, forcing him to sell many of his homes and his cars just to pay them back. Luckily, old Nick never turns down a role, so he was able to maintain possession of a few of his properties. Ever since the tax fiasco, it seems that Cage has controlled his spending habits and somehow increased his workload. Since 2013, he's already been in over 16 movies, and in this year alone, he's planning 6 more. Cage's estimated net worth is around $20 million, despite earning nearly $150 million between the years of 1996 and 2011. This has been a look at just a few famous people who were once at the top of their game and then lost it all. Thanks for watching! First up on our list is Joe Simpson, Jessica and Ashley Simpson's father. Now, we won't go into detail, but I just want to start you off with a little quote that might leave you uneasy. Jessica never tries to be sexy. She just is sexy. If you put her in a t-shirt or you put her in a bustier, she's sexy in both. She's got double D's. You can't cover those